Bordeaux progressed to the quarterfinals, but it wasn't as comfortable as many had expected. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Bordeaux started this game much better than they ended it. So first of all, Ulster knocked the ball on right off the kickoff. Bordeaux have a scrum on the edge of 22. They shifted left, attacking close to the line, but Zach Ward makes his tackle and then gets over the ball to win a penalty. I thought on the losing side, he was pretty impressive today. And one thing I would kind of criticise Ulster for was not getting the ball to him enough, because the guy really is a point of difference. Jacob Stockdale, another guy who had a decent game for Ulster, he collects a loose kick from Carberry and he runs it back, smashes a tackler out of his way and continues on. James McNabney takes it on from there, but the Ulster players just look completely hesitant in terms of getting there to support, and Bordeaux get over the ball and they win a penalty. And that was one of the big differences between these two teams. As soon as a Bordeaux player looked like, not even if he did, if he looked like he was going to break the line, there was just a sea of players ready in support. Whereas Ulster always holding back, hesitating, thinking, are we going to lose the ball? Do we need to defend? Nobody really getting up there properly in support. And instead, what you'd have, instead of, players like the likes of McNabney or Stockdale or Ward or whoever, they'd be looking for, some kind of support. Do I have an offload on? And instead, if they get tackled, the player who was hesitating has to come in and clear out. And then already you've slowed down the attack. It's allowed Bordeaux to reset the defence, and then any kind of chance of a quick score is gone. But then after that, it's a loose kick from Stockdale that leads to the opening score. That's collected and fed into Carberry, and he's kind of in the middle of the pitch, but jinks out to the wide right, gives it to Mo Fana. He makes ground up the line. Then Pinot comes on the switch, pass it into Pinot, and there's a few players for him to beat, but he just absolutely, this guy, he's phenomenal. He just glides past the players. He has the cover coming up, a little jink, a step, and then, he never even looks like he's like sprinting or whatever, but he's obviously traveling faster than the player trying to catch him. And he just goes over the score, just so serene, an absolute quality player. That's converted for 7 points to 0. Ulster then gets stripped into tackle and Bordeaux counter. Pinot takes it deep into 22 before Lowry tackles him into touch. Ulster struggles to secure the line out, and they eventually do get the ball clear, but again, big struggles in the line out for them all day today. Bordeaux then strike again from their own line out. They go to the maul outside the 22. They keep it going. Ulster's maul defence, been very poor this season. Can't stop them. And they work it from outside the 22 to within a couple of meters. Then they shift it, and it's Tamia Funa. He crashes over to score. Carberry adds the extras, 14 points to 0. I thought Carberry, while he was on, had an excellent game as well for Bordeaux, and really good off the tee too. That, there was many differences between the two teams today, but the ability to convert off the tee was another one. It was, it just gave Bordeaux that extra cushion that they were scoring. When they were scoring tries, they were going up in 7s, and Ulster were going up in 5s at times as well. Especially in the second half where they were looking to come back into the game. But from here then, Ulster have their first proper entry into the 22 from a line out. They carry it in the forwards, but not making much ground. So Jack Murphy tries a cross kick to Zach Ward, but it's too high and it goes into touch. Bordeaux then come flowing forward again. They're making ground at the 22, and Coleman, he gets tackled a couple of meters short of the line, but he just stretches out as he's getting brought to ground, and grounds on the line, converted for 21 points to 0. And again, just the difference in terms of Ulster were huffing and puffing into 22, not really getting anywhere. Bordeaux, they get forward, they've got numbers. It's all at pace. It's all with power. They're making, gains all the time. They're getting that gain line, and just complete difference between the teams at this stage. Then, Ulster kind of spark a little bit. We have great hands down the left. Stockdale to the fore again. Ulster into 22. They have a period a few meters out. The forwards truck it up, but Bordeaux keeping them out. Back for a penalty. They go quickly from that. A few recycles later, and Tom O'Toole forces his way over. That's converted for 21 points to 7. Ulster then come forward again. Zach Ward making crazy meters after contact. He's half tackled, but he's kind of like shrugging players and shimmying and lifting his legs and doing everything like just to get a few more meters, then a few more spinning. And, eventually he gets into the 22. Ulster move it, and then they force the penalty. They opt for a scrum. They go through the phases from that. Timney goes close. Then McCann grounds on the line. That's converted for 21 points to 14. And Ulster back in the game now. Then Ulster, they're looking to attack as we approach the break. We've probably got about a minute until half time. And then, they're around about halfway, 30 seconds left. Then another loose kick from them. This time it's Hume, and that allows Bordeaux to come forward from there. And they just keep going. Like, players carrying, he gets tackled. He offloads to a guy in support. He goes forward a few meters. He gets tackled. There's another guy in support he offloads it to, and just kept on doing it. Rinse, repeat. And then they're close to the line. They recycle the ball and pass it to Boris, and he gets over to score. And again, that difference in terms of just the support for the runner was always there for Bordeaux, especially at this point in the game. Whereas Ulster, if they got tackled, they had to go to ground because there was nobody there, nobody taking that risk. And yeah, it's obviously a team in Ulster who are very much in transition, and Bordeaux, who are one of the best, best teams in Europe, if not in the world, especially on attack. But still, it's just that ethos of, let's back ourselves that Bordeaux had, that Ulster almost had to convince themselves, to take a chance to go for it. Whereas Bordeaux, it's just natural for them, it feels. And then here, it's converted for 28 points to 14. That's the halftime score. And I feel like at that stage, Ulster probably wished, they had to just run down those last kind of 30 seconds or so and kicked it off for half time and just been down like the one try going into the second half. Into the second half, then we have a seatbelt tackle by Ulster in the 22, and Luku slots that for 31 points to 14. Joey Carberry, earlier on in the move, he'd got smashed in a tackle and he had to be replaced by Jalabert. And what a quality player to be able to bring off the bench as well. Luku then kicks a fantastic 50-22, and Bordeaux get a penalty because O'Toole is swimming up the side of the maul. They then kick the penalty to the corner, set up the maul. Ulster kind of almost halting it, but it's never actually stopped. They're always going forward, and then the defence splits and the maul comes pouring through, and Lamotte scores grounding at the back of it. Conversions missed, 36 points to 14. Ulster then work the ball into 22. They're close out wide left. Stockdale with an offload to Timney. We have a TMO check. And then we see that Timney did really well to avoid the touchline and score in the corner. Conversions missed. We're at 36 points to 19. We then have, one of many crazy periods of play in the game. Doak puts a kick through in the 22. It goes, bounces behind the try line. Bordeaux decided to just going to run it from behind their own try line because why not, right? And they actually work it up to halfway. They almost they got to the point where they were in behind the Ulster defence, and you had Stockdale, another player, kind of covering. Stockdale didn't want to come in to commit, because then Bordeaux might have just gotten beyond them. Somehow Ulster managed to contain them, because Bordeaux at that stage were one decent pass away from being in again. So Ulster then are, Bordeaux have to move it from that was out on the right wing. They have to move it to the left, and as they move to the left, then Ulster get in, they disrupt, they turn the ball over, and then there is a kick through, and Zach Ward wins the race to dot down in the far right corner. But we have a Timo check, and there's a knock on earlier in the move from Ulster, so it's no try. Ulster, though, they have gotten themselves a bit of momentum now, and they're working close to the line. They're forcing penalty advantage. They go wide right, and then McCluskey, he looked like he was going for the line, but then decides to offload it to Ward, and Ward does really well to readjust, collect the ball, and ground in the corner. Conversions missed. We're at 36 points to 24. Bordeaux then looking a little shaky, but then a scrum penalty, I think really settled this ship for them. Allowed them to get back into Ulster half. They, look to attack off the line out. Ulster give away a silly penalty. Luku goes quickly. They work it up to the line, and then Rowan Janssen van Rensburg has just too much power. He goes over to score, convert for 43 points to 24, and that is the quarterfinal spot sealed. But there for a minute or two, they looked very, very wobbly. Bordeaux then look to run from a scrum outside their own 22, but the ball goes to ground. Zach Ward gets there, kicks it on, and then just holds off. The chasing back players, gets there first to score, convert for 43 points to 31. Ulster then break from their own 22. Stockdale through a gap. He then passes to Morgan out on the right. He carries on. Then he passes back inside to Doak, who goes over under the post. But then we have a Timo check, because there was a knock on before it even got to Stockdale, right at the start of the move. We then have, we don't actually come back for the knock on itself. That rules a tryout, but Ulster had a penalty for a high tackle, but then that comes to nothing. So final score is 43 points to 31 full time. So let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll talk about each of the teams from there. So let me pull those stats up now on the official site. And as always, we hope that they are somewhat up to date. Okay, there they are. Okay. Now, so first of all, tries, 6 tries for Bordeaux, 5 for Ulster. It's been a crazy round of 16, with so many high scoring games and teams just scoring tons of tries. Then on attack, meters made 669 to 687. So Ulster actually making more meters than Bordeaux, but Bordeaux, basically backing you up. There's no stop start to their attacks. It's all just flowing forward and very little pausing. Carries then 138 to 152. So obviously, on that, given there was very few meters between them, Bordeaux carrying slightly more per carry as well. Clean breaks then 18 to 10. And that's off defenders beating 26 to 27. So again, it speaks that, ability of, Bordeaux and the willingness to support the man that makes a half break to turn it into a clean break. The fact that, although they had one less defender beaten than Ulster, they had 8 more clean breaks. And, again, that is a mindset thing. It's not just ability of players. Yes, ability helps. It helps you beat the man in the first place, but to turn it into a clean break, you need that support there. And, for a lot of time, Ulster was lacking. Offloads then 25 for Bordeaux, 15 for Ulster. A bunch of those offloads had to have been in the build up to that Bordeaux try as well. There were just so many of them, so good as well, all sympathetic, and always the man is there to collect it as well. On to passes then, 133 to 183, and this is the thing that again points to the difference between the teams. Possession, 44% for Bordeaux, 56% for Ulster. Territory, 40% Bordeaux and 60% for Ulster. Bordeaux just so more efficient in the use of the ball that they had, and it makes it feel like they're dominating those stats because they're just so quickly being able to get up the field and get their scores. Onto defence then. Tackles made, 155 to 114, and Bordeaux 75%, not great from them, but Ulster 68%. That is the worst we've seen across all of the games uncovered this weekend. So of the 7 Champions Cup round of 16 games that we've had so far, I've covered now 6 of them. It's going to be 7 when I do Toulouse after this. But yeah, Ulster actually the worst. The next worst was 70%. Turnovers 1, then 5 for Bordeaux, 7 for Ulster. Onto set piece. Lineouts, Bordeaux 12, 100%. Ulster 11-1 for 73%. And again, at crucial times, their lineout just completely, deserted them. Misfiring in terms of just not getting the jumping right, or whatever, throwing over the back, and then Bordeaux were wise to that as well. A couple of times they missed through over the back, and one time they intentionally threw to the back for a player who was coming in, but Bordeaux was so switched on that player kind of just jumped across and collected before the player coming in could get it. So no change from that for Ulster. Scrums 1 then, 6 to 5, 100% each on that one. Then on to kicking, we have kicks from hand, 28 from Bordeaux and 31 for Ulster, and kick meters, 1,068 for Bordeaux and 866 for Ulster. And this is something I come back to again and again, is people always complain about kicking in the game, but if you properly look at the stats of the teams who, like Bordeaux, your Toulouse's, the French national team, etc., who produce the best rugby, they kick a lot and they kick long as well. And the reason they do that is because they're kicking to you, so you kick back to them, and then they get their back 3 going, and they've worked your defense so that they know that there's space there, and they're so good at exploiting it. And that's what Bordeaux did today particularly well. And Ulster kicking for 866 is a decent number for them as well. But Bordeaux kicking 200 meters more in the game from 3 less kicks. Again, it just shows you that the whole idea of, if you remove kicking from the game, then you're going to have more attacking rugby. You're not. What you're going to end up is you're going to have teams who get stalled, and instead of going to the kick and creating the space that way, they'll just keep trucking you up, and then it's going to be a bore fest from there on. There still might be scores. There are a million ways to play the game, but you can't just remove one element from the game and expect the rest of it to keep going. And for teams that like to attack, kicking is one of the tools that they use to create that space that we then all enjoy when they just have the flowing moves, cutting teams apart. That's for the main part how to do it, other than like strike moves from set plays. On to retain kicks then, 2 for Bordeaux, 4 for Ulster. So again, Ulster kicking shorter because they wanted to contest for it. Then onto the breakdown. So Rucks won 67 to 102. 2 Rucks lost each. 93% for Bordeaux and 96 for Ulster. And then mauls, 6 mauls for Bordeaux to 1 for Ulster. 83% for Bordeaux in terms of maul success, 100% for Ulster, but there's no doubt in my mind Bordeaux had absolutely the better of the two mauls. 5 meters gained in mauls for Bordeaux, that absolutely cannot be right, because again, they worked one maul from outside the 22 to about 2 or 3 meters short of the line. So I don't know how they're coming up with those metrics, but there's no way that Bordeaux had less meters than they had mauls, because they made more meters from one maul, than most teams would make in 2 or 3 games. And then just a 1 meter made from Ulster's one maul. Penalties conceded then, 8 for Bordeaux, 7 for Ulster. And not really, too much for the referee to get involved in this game. Most of the penalties were pretty clear. Some silly ones from Ulster as well at crucial times in the game. Okay, so that's our stats. Let's talk about the team. So we talk about the losing side, Ulster, first. So, they let Bordeaux get that start ahead of them. And then after that, then it was always playing catch up. And they never really got, they never got themselves back within a score. And that was kind of the issue for them, was that then, we could see there with about maybe 10 minutes to go, there was a little bit of a wobble from Bordeaux. And if they had have been able to get another score and bring it back within, one score, they might have had a chance to pull off an upset in this one. But they were always just too far behind. They get themselves a little bit closer, then they concede, and then, get a little bit closer again and concede again. And, that's kind of the pattern for them in the second half. Yes, they won the second half, but they didn't win it, by enough is the problem. And I think they only actually won they only won the second half by a couple of points or something in the end. So, there was a chance, maybe a glimmer, but it was very, very narrow window for them, and they couldn't take, advantage of it. And part of that was, some of the decision making was poor. I thought as well that the support in attack, wasn't there the way that it was for Bordeaux. Their set piece didn't help them either, getting into positions and then overthrowing lineouts and stuff like that. And then turnover ball for Bordeaux is like manna from heaven. So not only are you causing problems in terms of, your own attack breaking down, you're now, scrambling in defense as well against, one of the best counter-attacking teams in the world. And for Ulster as well, again, we're talking about that, they're a team in transition. They've got, young Jack Murphy there at 10, who seems to be coming on this season. Compare his performance today to the way he was at the start of the season, when it was, Morgan was starting ahead of him. You can see he's definitely come on, and next year, I think we're going to see the benefit of that for Ulster. I think Ulster are going to be a better team next year. I don't think that they're going to be at the level of Bordeaux next year, but there's certainly going to be an improvement on what we've seen from them in the last couple of seasons. They still need, though, to definitely add a bit of backbone to that team, because they concede, too easily. And one of the big differences between the teams today was how little effort Bordeaux had to put into a lot of their scores, compared to, Bordeaux made Ulster work for every point that they got in this game. It was real effort for Ulster to get over the line, whereas Bordeaux just made it look easy. And it's not a slight on them. It's a compliment to them that they're so good that, they know where the space is. They know where each other are as well, almost at all times, like a telepathic thing. And, they make the opportunity, they make the entry into 22, and they get their points and they leave. Whereas Ulster were spending minutes, near the line and trying to get over, and they'd win a penalty, and then, Bordeaux might actually turn them over, or they'd eventually bar their way over. But they knew they had to work their asses off for those 5 or 7 points that they got from it. But there are positives from Ulster. You look at how Bordeaux just absolutely destroyed them in the pool stages earlier on in the season, and that was over in Ireland. So certainly an improvement on that performance from them, and there are young players coming through in the team now as well. So definitely good things for Ulster to look forward to, for next season, I think. Onto Bordeaux then, at times they look absolutely amazing, but there were times there where you saw that kind of vulnerability that, makes you think about, are they ready to win this competition is the thing, right? Because when you talk about teams like Bordeaux, who come out as number 1 seeds, you're not just talking about getting through the round of 16. You're talking about lifting the trophy. That's the bracket that they're in at the minute. And you look at it and you think, like, on attack, if they get chances, they can hurt anyone. But when the pressure comes on, there definitely are vulnerabilities there that can be exploited by some of the bigger teams. And, that's the worry for them, I think, that, when they do, like, it's probably going to be, you're looking at now, they've got, Munster next. Munster would be sniffing at that as another, upset for them. But Munster this season, they've rarely put together 2 kind of really big performances back to back. So that's a huge ask for them to cause an upset, in the quarterfinals. But you can't rule it out either. But if Bordeaux then go on to the semi-finals, that's where I think if they can deliver in the semi-finals, then you're probably going to make them the favourites for the final, because once they get to the final, then I think the anxiety will be the fact that they come out of the pools last year as one of the hot favourites for the title, and then Harlequins turn them over in the knockout stages, at home as well. So it's that kind of thing that Bordeaux have to avoid. I think if they can get into a final, they're going to be full of confidence. They're going to back themselves, and they're going to be really hard to beat. But from today, as I said, the things that we know about them already that are so good. The maul was excellent. The forwards carrying, always power, always making the gain line, going out to the backs. They've got pace, but they've also got smarts in the backs as well. The likes of Damien Penaud, such a clinical finisher, and his awareness of space. And I thought, again, Carberry, when he was on, was so good at identifying that space and making sure that they got the ball there as quickly as possible. The line out, I thought, was very good for them too. The defence, they made Ulster work for the scores, and that's what you got to do. In these games, you can't give away easy points the way Ulster were doing, and they took their opportunities too, and that's a big thing. Is when you get into whether it's going to be a quarterfinal, a semi-final, or a final, when those opportunities come, it could be a tighter game than this, and one score could be the difference. That if you're a team that you get down the opposition's end and you take your points, you get over, you get your score, and it hasn't been a huge effort for you to do that. That's going to be, a big plus for you. Whereas if the other team, the way Ulster have to do today, have to work like dog themselves, for 5 minutes or whatever to get over your line, and then sometimes that it's not even going to be a try. That does kind of tell, I think, in the run of the game. But Bordeaux certainly going to be happy overall with the win. Certainly things to improve on for that quarterfinal. I think though they're still going to be the favourites to progress on, from that quarterfinal against Munster next weekend. So, they're potentially for them, they got a semi-final to look forward to, but one of those things is, you can't look too far ahead. You've got to deal with your next opponents. You got to respect them. I think they certainly will. And I think it's probably going to be, hopefully another epic game next weekend between the two of them as well. Okay, so that's it for me. Let me know what you think down in the comments.